Let's get right into it. Number 10, the walls are breathing. Right now, the drywall surrounding you is expanding. Not by much. Not by anything you could see, but it's expanding. Drywall is roughly 21% water by weight when it's first installed. That number changes constantly. Humid summer air pushes moisture into the gypsum core, dry winter air pulls it back out. Every single day, your walls are absorbing and releasing water like a slow, silent lung, and the building moves with it. This is why your doors stick in July and swing freely in December. The door hasn't changed. The frame around it has. The wood absorbs the same moisture the drywall does, swells slightly, and suddenly the door that opened fine in winter is dragging across the floor by August. Builders account for this. Every gap, every joint, every expansion crack you see running along a ceiling or baseboard, those aren't signs of poor workmanship. They're intentional breathing room. Remove them, and the house would crack itself apart from the inside as the materials fought each other for space. Your house isn't a rigid box. It's more like a slow, very boring accordion. It just never stops playing. Number 9, the fridge is lying to you about temperature. Open your refrigerator right now. Everything in there looks equally cold. It isn't. Your refrigerator runs a deliberate temperature gradient. Coldest at the back near the cooling coils, warmest near the door. The back wall can sit at 34 degrees Fahrenheit while the door shelves hover at 50 degrees Fahrenheit or above. And that's not a malfunction. It's how every standard refrigerator is designed. The problem is that nobody labels these zones for you. Most people store their most perishable items, milk, eggs, condiments, in the door, which is the warmest spot in the unit. The door gets opened constantly, exposing those items to room temperature air dozens of times a day. Meanwhile, the back of the middle shelf, the coldest, most stable zone, is usually where people keep leftover pasta. The USDA has studied this. Bacteria doubles in number roughly every 20 minutes above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. A milk carton sitting on a 50 degrees Fahrenheit door shelf is in a very different food safety situation than one sitting at 36 degrees Fahrenheit in the back. Move the milk to the middle shelf. Move the condiments to the door. Your fridge will be unchanged. Your food will last days longer. The fridge was right the whole time. You were just using it wrong. Number 8, the pipes are sending you warnings. That random tick from inside your wall isn't the house settling. It's your plumbing giving you a message. You should probably learn to read it. When hot water flows through a copper pipe, the pipe heats up and expands at a rate of about 1 inch per 50 feet of pipe length for every 100 degrees Fahrenheit of temperature change. In a standard house, that's a lot of pipe moving a lot. It pushes against the brackets and joist holding it in place, and that friction produces a tick. You hear it every time someone runs a hot shower. It's harmless. The sounds that aren't harmless are different. A water hammer, the sudden metallic bang when a tap is shut off quickly, is shockwave pressure slamming through your pipes. Over years, those shockwaves loosen joints and fatigue fittings. Plumbers install air chambers specifically to absorb this, and when those chambers fail, the banging starts. A low, persistent hiss from inside a wall is the one that should make you move. Water under pressure, finding a small gap, sounds exactly like that, and by the time you hear it, the wall behind the drywall has often been wet for weeks. Your house speaks in sounds. Most of them are fine, one of them is not. Number 7, the outlets are draining money with nothing plugged in. Every powered device in your house, phone chargers, TVs, microwaves, anything with a clock or a standby light, draws electricity continuously whether you're using it or not. This is called phantom load or standby power, and the U.S. Department of Energy estimates it accounts for 5 to 10% of the average household's electricity bill. That's not nothing. For a typical American home, that's roughly $100 to $200 per year flowing silently out of your outlets and into devices that are, by any meaningful definition, doing nothing. The biggest offenders are predictable: cable boxes that never fully power down, game consoles in standby mode, televisions waiting for a remote signal. A game console on standby can draw as much power as a small lamp left on all night. Unplugging things when they're not in use eliminates this entirely. Power strips with individual switches make it easier. Smart plugs that cut power on a schedule make it invisible. The electricity meter outside your house doesn't know you're asleep. It just keeps counting. Number 6, the thermostat is reading the wrong room. Your thermostat is measuring the temperature of the air directly around it. Not the air where you're sitting, not the floor where your children are playing. The 2-foot column of air in front of a box on the wall in a hallway. Hot air rises. In a room with a high ceiling, the air near the thermostat, usually mounted at chest height on a wall, can read 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than the air at floor level where you actually live. Your thermostat reaches its target temperature, shuts the system off, and the floor stays cold. You turn the heat up. The ceiling gets warmer. The floor stays cold. This is compounded by placement. Thermostats installed near kitchens read high because cooking raises local air temperature. Thermostats near exterior doors read low because cold drafts hit them every time someone enters. Either way, you're conditioning the wrong air. The fix is almost free. A small programmable fan circulating air in the room evens out the temperature gradient. Or you move the thermostat. Or you accept that your house has been quietly misbilling you on comfort for years. The average family spends $1,900 per year on home energy. A thermostat reading 3 degrees Fahrenheit high can add $150 to that before you've done anything wrong. Number 5, the floor is failing in slow motion. That squeak in your floor didn't appear one day, it was building for years. Wood floors are nailed or screwed into a subfloor which sits on top of structural joists. When you walk across the floor, each board deflects microscopically, a fraction of a millimeter, under your weight. Done once, that's fine. Done thousands of times a day for years, the nail holes slowly enlarge. The boards begin to move slightly against the fasteners. The fasteners move slightly against the subfloor. Everything that should be rigid develops just enough play that when you step on it, it announces itself. The squeak is the nail rubbing against wood. That's it. That's the whole sound. What most people don't know is that squeaks cluster in predictable locations. High traffic paths, the spot in front of the kitchen sink, the third step from the top of the staircase. These aren't random. They're the places where cumulative stress concentrates first. Think of your floor as a map of every step you've ever taken. The squeaks are where you've walked the most. A carpenter can fix a squeak in about 10 minutes with a long screw and a countersink bit. Most people let it go for a decade and eventually just learn which path through the kitchen is silent. Both are valid responses. Number 4, the air inside is more polluted than outside. This one takes a moment to accept because it feels wrong. The EPA has studied indoor air quality extensively and consistently finds that indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, and in some cases up to 100 times worse. In a sealed, insulated modern home, this gap gets wider. The same energy-efficient construction that keeps your heating bill low traps everything the building generates and prevents it from escaping. The sources are everywhere. Cooking releases particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. Cleaning sprays aerosolize volatile organic compounds. Furniture, carpets, and paint off-gas formaldehyde for years after installation. New carpet in particular releases the most in the first 72 hours, which is exactly when most people are home most, unpacking boxes. Candles and incense add ultrafine particles that penetrate deep into lung tissue. Your HVAC system circulates this. The filter captures some of it. The rest recirculates. The fix isn't complicated. Open windows when cooking. Run the exhaust fan above the stove. Actually run it, not as background noise, but pointed directly at what you're cooking. Replace HVAC filters on schedule. Add a small air purifier with a HEPA filter to the room you spend the most time in. The outdoors you're carefully locking out is in most cases cleaner than what you're locked in with. Number 3, the windows are heating the room. They're supposed to protect. In winter, windows don't just let cold in. They actively pull heat out of the room. Glass conducts heat far faster than any insulated wall. A standard double-pane window has an insulation value of R2 to R3. A standard insulated wall sits at R13 to R21. The window is between 4 and 7 times worse at holding heat than the wall it replaced. At night, when outdoor temperatures drop and there's no solar gain coming through the glass, each window in your home radiates heat outward continuously. A single standard window in a cold climate loses approximately the same amount of heat as leaving a door open by 4 inches all night. Most homes have 8 to 12 windows. This is why rooms feel drafty near windows even when they're fully closed. You're not feeling a draft in most cases. You're feeling radiant heat loss, your body's warmth being pulled toward the colder surface of the glass the way warmth always moves toward cold. Heavy curtains closed at dusk cut this loss by up to 40%. Thermal curtains backed with insulating fabric cut it further. The window still loses heat. The curtain just slows the rate. Most people open their curtains in winter to let the sun in during the day, then forget to close them at night. They spend the day gaining solar heat through the glass and the night losing it through the same glass. The house is trading the same energy back and forth, and your heating bill is the difference. Number 2, the mattress is not what it was. The mattress you bought weighs a certain amount. The mattress you're sleeping on tonight does not weigh that anymore. Over years of use, a mattress accumulates dead skin cells, dust mite waste, absorb sweat, and shed hair at a rate most people find uncomfortable to think about. A human sheds approximately 30,000 to 40,000 dead skin cells per hour. A significant portion of those end up in the mattress. Dust mites, microscopic arachnids that live exclusively on dead human skin, colonize mattresses by the millions within the first few months of use. Scientists have measured this. After 8 years, a mattress can weigh significantly more than it did new, with the added mass almost entirely composed of biological material and the waste products of organisms feeding on it. The dust mites themselves are harmless. Their waste is not. Dust mite feces are one of the most common indoor allergens and are associated with chronic asthma, eczema flare-ups, and persistent nasal congestion that most people attribute to everything except where they sleep. A mattress protector, a simple waterproof cover that zips over the mattress, blocks new material from entering and makes the surface washable. It costs between $30 and $60. Most people spend $800 to $2,000 on a mattress and nothing on the thing that would actually keep it clean. The mattress industry knows this. They've never mentioned it. Number 1, the foundation is moving right now, not collapsing, not failing, moving. Every foundation, in every soil condition, in every climate, moves constantly. Engineers call it differential settlement, the slow, uneven shifting of a structure as the soil beneath it responds to moisture, temperature, and load. In clay-heavy soil, a foundation can move vertically by half an inch or more between a wet season and a dry one. In freeze-thaw climates, frost heaving can push sections of foundation upward by inches and release them in spring. This happens every year. It has been happening since the day your house was built. The house is designed to handle most of this. The foundation is engineered with some tolerance for movement built in. The framing above it has some flex. The drywall finishes are the first to show the stress, which is why small diagonal cracks at the corners of door frames and windows are so common. The frame moved, the brittle finish cracked to relieve the pressure. That's the system working. What it means is that your house is not a permanent, fixed object. It's a structure in a constant, slow negotiation with the ground beneath it, the water moving through that ground, and the temperature of the air above it. It shifts, it breathes, it creaks. It tells you things in sounds and cracks and sticking doors if you know what to listen for. The foundation, the walls, the pipes, the air, the floor under your feet, none of it is static. All of it is doing something right now while you sit inside it, not noticing. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.